Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a graphic nature and in graphic detail and may not be suitable for children under 13. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 41. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
Tonight we have another case suggestion.
Yeah, those are the best.
So tonight we're going to be looking at an unsolved case as requested by one of our listeners named Lynn, the Eastbound Strangler case.
Ooh,
Interesting.
Well, the interesting thing about this case is it almost opened a massive can of worms on me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that the time they suggested this, and you'll see when we get to the end, it connects to a completely different case, or it looks like it might connect. And that case is currently like ongoing and very much active in the news. So I was like, oh, I might have to hold off on this. But then investigators turned around and said, oh, no, they actually don't have anything to do with each other. So I was like, okay, we can cover this case now.
All right.
Right? That's intriguing. Let's dive in.
Okay, so when I ask you to picture a casino, where do you picture it?
Las Vegas.
Okay, I mean, that's where most people would. Did you know that Atlantic City was once a beacon of gambling for a good time in the U.S.?
Oh, that's true. That is a big thing.
Yes,
is it not anymore?
I knew that was an area.
It's still there, but most people think of Vegas. That was the first thing that you said within like 3 seconds of me asking that question.
It's just true.
So there is a fantastic show on HBO, or now Max, called Boardwalk Empire that fictionalizes the history of Atlantic City, and it is so good. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's got Steve Buscemi.
Ooh, I think I've seen a couple episodes.
It is so good.
It sounds awesome.
They killed off my favorite character, and I was so bullshit, but it was done so well that you can't be mad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend that. So, of course, just like Las Vegas, any real enterprise with unregulated cash invites in a criminal element. So Atlantic City also happened to be growing at the same time that the U.S. had decided to outlaw alcohol.
Yeah. Rough.
Yeah, so Prohibition, of course, was in full swing in Atlantic City, and it was still jumping in those early days, which were basically what created the mafia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because at that point, criminals, they were doing their thing, but once you could kind of move alcohol and sell it at these raised prices, it helped them organize.
Right, 100%. Get some cash flow.
Right, and that was a big, big part of that. And now Atlantic City today is nothing like it used to be, but don't rule it out just yet. To the unsuspecting tourist, it's a smaller East Coast Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a strong chance that the mafia hasn't fully been driven out of Atlantic City because they had to go somewhere after New York. And they're still in New York, but not the way they used to be.
Right.
So crime still happens there all the time, and certainly murders as well. So the bodies of 4 women identified as sex workers were found in a drainage ditch filled with shallow water on November 20th, 2006.
Oof.
They were found behind the Golden Key Motel on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, situated on the outskirts of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Interestingly, someone who lives in or near Egg Harbor Township has downloaded many of our episodes. That's
we're looking at you.
Really funny. Yeah, we're looking at you.
If any one of us goes missing,
we're checking.
So these women that were found, they were Molly Jean Diltz, 20. Molly grew up in Black Lick, Pennsylvania. She had a young child that she had asked relatives to care for. She was a former fast food cook, and unlike all the other victims, she had never been arrested for sex work in Atlantic City. Although numerous sex workers in the area claimed to have seen her working in the sex trade in the short time between her arrival there and her death. They said she sometimes went by the name Amber or Princess on the streets. A friend told the New York Times that Molly would cry a lot and sometimes spoke that she was considering suicide. Her body showed no trace of drugs, but she had been drinking just before her death. She was clad in a denim miniskirt, a bra, and a mesh blouse, and she was believed to have been in that ditch the longest, for possibly as long as a month, and because her body was so badly decomposed.
Oh God, that's
yeah.
awful.
Yeah. And her cause of death could not be determined.
Yeah, I guess after that long, it's really tough. Oh, that's sad.
A whole month, though. I mean, that just kind of goes back to the unfortunate stereotype of people seeing individuals like this as not people.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I think she was reported missing.
Absolutely.
I think she was reported missing, but she just wasn't found.
Yeah.
So, unlike some of these others, as you'll see, we're about to dig into all 5 of their lives. So Molly's father, Vemer, Vemer,
I don't know.
her father, Vemer Diltz, said, quote, "I want everyone to know Molly was a good woman and a good mother." So, yeah, that's heartbreaking. The second victim was Tracy Ann Roberts, 23. Tracy grew up in Newcastle, Delaware. As a teenager, Tracy dropped out of high school and briefly studied to become a medical assistant. She lived in Philadelphia before working in strip clubs in and around Atlantic City, but according to reports, drug use took its toll on her appearance and club owners stopped hiring her.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess looking at it that way, like that's one of the downfalls of that trade.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't last that long.
Well, no, and if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to shorten that lifespan.
Yeah, 100%.
So as a result of her no longer being able to get jobs at clubs, she began selling sex on the streets. Interestingly, the other sex workers on the streets called her either the young one or the pretty one. She lived in the same rundown area of rooming houses along with one of the other victims, Kim Raffo, who we'll get into later, whom she had actually became friends with while they were both working the streets. Wearing a red hooded sweatshirt and a black bra, her body had been in the ditch anywhere from a couple of days to a week before it was discovered. Tracy had a young daughter. She was last seen alive in November of 2006 when she was punched in the throat by a man who wanted to be her pimp.
Oh my God.
Oh.
She had to be hospitalized due to the fact that she was coughing up blood.
Oh my God.
That's fucking crazy.
That's really bad.
And her cause of death had been asphyxiation.
Oh God.
The third victim was Barbara Brador. She was 42. Barbara came from a well-off family in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania, where she grew up with 2 sisters and a half-brother. They all attended Catholic school, and her father was a school counselor. Family members called her the smartest of her siblings, as she seemed to know a little bit about everything. She was popular throughout high school, known for her quick wit and broad smile. Barbara was intelligent and well-educated, and even started attending Penn State for 2 years. After college, Barbara went to work for her mother, also named Barbara. Weird.
Yeah, they don't usually do that for women.
No, not at all. Her mother had launched the Santa Fe Trading Company, a small, lucrative chain of stores selling Native American art and clothing. Barbara's father had died in the early 80s from aortic valve disease, and her half-brother died in 2000. As a result of, all that stress, her mother sold the business and moved to Florida around that time. Barbara, who wanted to stay in the area, got a job as a cocktail waitress at the Copacabana Casino on the boardwalk, where she met a man named Steve Frizzle years earlier. I do need to make a note. Some reports name him Steve while others call him Stanley. It's a little weird. So I'm going to
That's a little odd, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, unless there are brothers or something, or 2 people, but it's really weird how that happens. So I'm just going to call him Frizzle, even though there's no indication that he's the killer. I'm just going to refer to him as his last name.
Did he ever ride on a magic school bus?
I don't get that.
Like Miss Frizzle?
I guess I missed that show as a kid.
Oh, maybe it wasn't Maybe it wasn't on the air yet. What was it called? Like
The Magic School Bus.
yeah, the Magic School Bus.
I don't recognize it. That's
Oh,
weird.
it slapped. It was so good.
All right, so we'll pretend that he took a ride on this magic school bus.
Yeah, good for him.
Well,
We all
considering
want to.
considering what we're gonna about learn about him, I'm sure he's taken many a ride on magic vehicles. So
Hmm.
might as well make a school bus one of them.
I can't wait to find out what the fuck you mean by that.
So Barbara's addiction began when she took a pain pill to ease her menstrual cramps in 1998. These pills had been prescribed to her boyfriend Frizzle, who had his own addictions. When the doctors cut off Frizzle's supply, the two of them turned to heroin to keep up that feeling that they were looking for. At this point, her sisters state that they don't believe she ever held a steady job again after that. Barbara's life slowly began to deteriorate over the next 8 years as the couple's addiction completely consumed them.
Hmm.
That's what I mean about magic buses and
Ah,
stuff.
you're talking about, yep. Okay,
Talking
I'm
about
with
drug
you.
use, yeah. In 2001, the couple sent their 4-year-old daughter to live in Florida with Barbara's sister, Valerie. And less than a year later, Barbara was working as a sex worker on the streets of Atlantic City. Barbara and Frizzle remained together until 2002, when Frizzle was arrested on burglary charges and drug possession charges.
Ugh.
While serving his year-long sentence in the Southern State Correctional Facility, Frizzle heard from friends that Barbara was using crack cocaine and working as a sex worker in Atlantic City. Barbara was arrested and convicted for soliciting a police officer in Atlantic City on 2 different occasions.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, serving at least 30 days in jail at that time. So this is why, like, for example, with Molly, the first one, she was the only one of the group that had never been arrested for sex work.
Right.
At the time of her murder, Barbara was staying with her friend Lori and Lori's father, Richard Adams, in a duplex on North Lafayette Avenue in Ventnor, New Jersey, where she did chores in exchange for free room and board. Barbara, who was last seen leaving the North Lafayette duplex on October 17, 2006, was not heard from again until her body was discovered behind the Golden Key Motel. For Barbara's family, her death was a terrible end for a woman who had once seemed to have certain success ahead of her. She was identified through dental records. Her body was so badly decomposed that her cause of death could not be determined.
Oh, that's so awful. It's so sad.
It's just crazy. You know, I understand that decomposition has to happen, but like it just sucks that like it took so long that they couldn't get any answers.
Right. Yeah, that it's just there's very little evidence left when it takes so long.
Right. So then we have Kim Raffo. Kim was only 35 years old when she was murdered. She was a mother, a sister, and a friend. Kim had married young and had 2 children. Kim was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and had then moved to Florida before moving to Atlantic City in 2003 with her boyfriend, whom she had met at a cooking class while in Florida. She had struggled with drug use despite trying to get her life together, and she also then began working as a sex worker. During the fall of 2006, Kim lived on Long Island with her husband, Hugh, for approximately 5 weeks. Sometime after that, Kim moved back to Atlantic City with her boyfriend, Kenny, and she resumed her drug use.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, that sucks.
Hate to see that.
Some outlets report that Kim was last seen in the early morning hours of November 19th, 2006. Last seen alive a day before all 4 bodies were discovered.
Oh, all right. So she at least wasn't decomposed, I assume.
Yeah, she had been strangled with either a rope or a cord, and all the bodies were found behind the Golden Key Motel, which was on a long stretch of 2-lane road with a larger highway between it. Like, it's hard to explain. I had to look this up on Google Maps to actually get to see it. It's literally like there's like a main road, and then there's the hotel. There's a little river/ravine, and then there's this massive highway. There's nothing else around it.
Right. So no one's going to find that.
You could kill someone out there and bury them, and no one's going to see it. and I'm saying this because obviously someone did. Like, it's
Right,
really that
exactly.
creepy. Yeah. So also behind the hotel was a railroad track and some of that marshy water that I had mentioned. And this is obviously a good place to dispose of bodies. These four women ranged in age from 20 to 42 years old. They were all found lying face down in the watery ditch with their heads pointing east.
Huh.
So they were sort of staged.
That's weird.
Yeah, they were all laid out the same way.
Very weird.
Now, all of them were found at various stages of decomposition, but they were fully clothed except for the fact that they were barefoot.
Very
Wow.
weird.
That's interesting.
That leads me to think of a shoe fetish.
Yeah, it does lead to that.
Maybe the killer kept the shoes as a trophy or something.
Yeah, that's weird, but I can see that being it.
Yeah. Toxicology reports revealed large amounts of cocaine in Kim and Tracy's bodies, alcohol in Molly's, and a potentially lethal dose of heroin in Barbara's.
Oh my God.
Raising the theory that the killer sedated his victims with alcohol or drugs.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense that he would have done something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So despite their diverse backgrounds, the victims, all having either experienced divorce or a death of a loved one recently, had fallen into heavy drug use and sex work. Authorities scoured the marshes behind the motel for any kind of clues, but ultimately they came up empty-handed. This is where they started turning to basically the public and tips for help on finding any information on persons of interest. So here we go, the persons of interest.
All right. Round up.
Terry Olson. He emerged as a person of interest during this time because he was a guest at the Golden Key Motel during the times of the murders.
Like all the times of the murders.
Correct. He was living there throughout that entire stretch of time. And he had even told investigators about a pair of construction boots that he had found on the motel's roof.
What was he doing on the roof?
I don't know. He believes his ex-girlfriend was the one that brought him to police attention in an attempt to get back at him for kicking her out.
Huh.
Yeah, he basically was like, get the fuck out, blah, blah, blah. So this woman decided, here you go. I think this guy killed these four women. He's living there, blah, blah, blah. That's what his argument is. He did provide hair and DNA samples in addition to volunteering for a polygraph test. In Olson's room, investigators did find cameras set up and images of his girlfriend's teenage daughter undressing.
Oh,
Ew.
God. No.
Ew.
Man.
Why are they always pedophiles?
It never ends, I swear to God.
Oh.
There have been no DNA matches to connect Olson with the crime, and he was never officially named a suspect.
Of course not. Why would
Naturally.
He has stated to reporters, quote, I have nothing to hide, but as far as I can tell, this story doesn't end well for me. My life is done, unquote.
Well, his life would have been done even if they either way. I mean, with the whole underage girl thing, like,
right. Well,
what did he think was going to happen?
Well, but he's basically he has to leave that area if he doesn't want everyone to think he's the guy who killed those girls.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's how that breaks down. So the next person of interest is a man named Eldred Raymond Burchell. He had given himself the nickname the Riverman, and this is possibly a reference to the Green River killer Gary Ridgway. Yeah. He was suspected after he confessed to another sex worker that he had killed people.
Oh my.
So the interesting thing is after that, he hasn't been connected to these murders. Like, they can't connect him to anything. So all they have is that he's telling sex workers that he kills people, and that's it. They can't prove any of it. It's a little weird. He's a very short name on this.
Yeah.
So the next person is Charles Coles. He was a drug dealer and a friend of Kim Raffo. He was questioned by police but released without charges, as was a man by the name of Mark Hesse, an acquaintance of Kim Raffo and Barbara Brader. So this person knows, one of them knows one of the victims, the other one knows two of them,
Gotcha.
which is just really, really odd. And again, that one's a really short one. This case is very quick. So in 2010, law enforcement officials investigated a possible connection between the Eastbound Strangler and the Gilgo Beach serial killings, but later ruled it out. For those who don't know, the Gilgo Beach serial killers was a series of killings between 1996 and 2011 in which 11 people, their remains were found in the Gilgo Beach area located on the south shore of Long Island in New York.
Ooh.
Most of the known victims were sex workers who advertised on Craigslist. Now, the perpetrator in this case became known as the Long Island serial killer, or LISK for short. So the victims' remains were found over a period of months in 2010 and 2011 after the disappearance of a woman named Shannon Gilbert resulted in a police search of the area along the Ocean Parkway near the remote beach town of Gilgo and Oak Beach in Suffolk County. Looking for one body, they found 4 bodies.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they were all within a quarter of a mile of each other near Gilgo Beach. And these were all discovered in 2010. So they kept searching. They found 6 more bodies.
Holy crud.
Yeah, in March and April of 2011 in the Suffolk and Nassau counties areas, and basically the same general vicinity. So police believe the later sets of remains predated the first 4 they found.
What?
Yeah. Shannon Gilbert, who had gone missing, her remains were found a year later as part of the Gilgo 4, as they were called. Her cause of death remains contested, but the police claim it was accidental drowning.
Interesting.
Right? While an independent autopsy determined possible strangulation.
Huh. Those don't feel like they would look the same.
Not at all. So as I was researching this case, I knew that something just happened with that case. So, yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh my God, we're about to dive into this. So here's what's happening with that. In July of 2023, Rex Howerman, a resident of Massapequa Park in Long Island, was arrested and charged in the murders of 3 of the Gilgo 4 victims.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, and Amber Costello. He was also named the prime suspect in the murder of Maureen Brainbard Barnes. So as I dove in and was researching this Eastbound Strangler case, I was like, oh shit, we're going to have to wait for this guy's trial for this to be over. But it turns out they can't tie this guy to the Atlantic City murders.
Gotcha.
Even though they're kind of in the same vicinity. And personally, I think it would be far too convenient if Hourman was the Eastbound Strangler, because it's kind of a nice bow, but it's kind of too much of a bow.
Right. It would be convenient. It would be so nice and tied up if it was that.
Yeah, it'd be like a movie,
Exactly. And we have talked about truth being stranger than fiction on this podcast before, but sometimes you can't expect it all to be so simple.
Exactly. And that's basically where we're at now, because I honestly, personally, I believe there are multiple serial killers operating at the same time in the same area. I don't know that the Gilgo Beach murders and the ones on the other county are related. They may be. Maybe it really is just the Long Island serial killer and not that one. At least they're in the same proximity. But this is Atlantic City. This is still at least an hour plus away.
Right. That's not necessary, especially when it seems like clusters. There's the cluster of bodies that were found in Atlantic City, and then the cluster on this Gilgo Beach place.
Right.
That doesn't scream the same person to me.
Right. And the ones on Gilgo Beach, some of them were found in sacks, like burlap sacks kind of thing, where these 4 bodies were all laid out face down, heads facing east, no shoes.
Yeah, very much seems like that's meditated by someone who really has that's their calling card or whatever you call it.
Right. Yes.
It was their signature thing.
Yes, that's their motif.
They're like, yeah, that's what you could call it. I'm like, I always think of Home Alone when they were the wet bandits.
Yes. So that, at least for now, is the case of the Eastbound Strangler because it's unsolved. And unless they can tie the victims of the Lisk murders to this, that's it for now. We don't know enough.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's some big question marks there. And I don't think I mean, it doesn't sound to me like it would be the same person.
Right. I agree. I think the same person killed the four women, but I don't necessarily think
Yeah,
it's the same as the Long Island one. I do think that first person, Terry Olson, I think he's most likely the killer. He lived there, he had motive,
right.
not motive, but he lived there, he had opportunity.
Yeah, had opportunity and we don't know enough about him to know like why he could have done that. Some people just hate sex workers.
Right. But he also had pictures of his girlfriend's teenage daughter on his
Yeah,
computer.
which ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
So who knows? But unfortunately, like I said, this is a case that we wouldn't normally cover because I'm personally not a fan of the unsolved ones. But hey, this was recommended by Lynn, so we're going to look into it. So Lynn, I hope you enjoyed that we looked into it. I feel like we don't have any answers for you.
I know. I wish we had more. Maybe we'll have a future update if
Yeah, I mean, with the unknown, anything is possible. So who knows? We could get
Yeah,
updates as they come.
yeah, DNA
yeah,
technology has come a long way. Yeah,
could
so
get a really interesting end to this someday.
yeah, hopefully that'd be great if we caught them, and it would be even crazier if this was actually Lisk, because this happened in 2006. That's when the bodies were found, I should say. And they've been looking for a killer in Long Island since 96 to 2011. So this person, it could have gone away, tried something different, came back. Who knows?
That's true. There's a lot of different things that could have happened there.
I didn't even think of that possibility. Yeah, that would make things much more complicated.
Yeah, there's a big time separation there.
I mean, who knows? Unfortunately, right now we have no answers, but yeah, well, I'll keep my eyes open and we'll do an update if we get anything. But thank you, Lynn, for bringing this to our attention. We appreciate that. And
Yeah, thanks for everybody else. We always appreciate it when you send in cases. We love digging
Absolutely.
into them.
yeah, I
Always a
mean,
lot of fun.
yeah, it's fun for us learning about cases we may have never heard of, and I had never heard of this one before Lynn bringing it to our attention. So thank you.
Now that's a shocker right there.
Oh, there's so many. Although, yes, you're right. I do nothing except research cases. I swear.
Yes, you know so much.
It's ridiculous how, and even in the last year, since starting this, I have learned so many more that it blows my mind that the world isn't more like anarchy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's crazy.
It also never ceases to amaze the audacity of a lot of these people.
Oh, the things they're willing to do and where and when and how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But all right, thank you guys for joining us. I am Janus Dead,
I'm Jameson dead.
And I'm Joyous dead.
and we'll see you next week.
Bye.